Welcome to this meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. My name is Councillor Jackie Challin and I'm Vice Chair of the committee. This meeting is being streamed live to Cheltenham Borough Council YouTube channel. Please note a fire alarm test is not expected, so if the alarm does sound, please make your way to the nearest fire exit. Tonight we have apologies from Councillors Healy, Joy and Sankey. And Councillor Davis is substituting for Councillor Joy. Thank you for that. Next, we have any declarations of interest. So could any member state any interests they have?
Yes, under item 7, can I just refer to the members, to the register of members' interests, and the fact that I'm the cabinet member with responsibility for Gloucestershire County Council as lead flood authority, and therefore partnership working on the other side. But I don't regard that as a prejudicial interest, so I won't be withdrawing. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that. Now we're on to the minutes of the last meeting, which took place on the 7th of July. So has anybody, any members, have you got comments or amendments on those minutes? Those of you who were here, obviously. Thank you. Can we have a little vote? Those who approve the minutes? Those of you who are here? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll do that. Thank you. I'll have the notes. Thanks. Public and member questions, calls for actions and petitions, none has been received. So we move on now to the Cabinet briefing. So Councillor Hay, we welcome you to do that.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it really brief because most of my time is spent going through the local government reorganisation process, which is trundling along, and I'm really pleased that we're being able to do this in, as collaborative way as we can with our county councillors and all the other districts. But everybody has their own thoughts and ideas on what should come next. But be assured there will be something coming next. It's just when, and it's very clear that it's not our decision. But we're heading towards submission by the 28th of November for the final business case that will go forward. The other one, I guess, might be of interest, I'm sure, is the sale of the airport. So we're looking at concluding the due diligence by the end of October. So that's all still on track. It's obviously we're still a preferred bidder rather than an actual sale, but we're heading in the right direction. And the other one is the municipal offices. Again, we're looking and there are negotiations happening. We've got a preferred bidder. Hopefully that will be coming forward relatively soon as well. I can't be as clear about that one as I am able to say that, we're anticipating the due diligence all done on the airport by the end of October, and similarly a bit longer possibly with the municipal offices. I don't really think I've got any other updates. Oh yes, I do. Forgot the governance review that we're carrying out with regards to the or sort of which got kicked off really because of the LGR stuff. It's that bit to try and make sure that all of our residents are represented at what goes next. So we've had the first round of consultation, and I thank Victoria for her input into that, and Jackie, actually, yours as well. So we've got the first set of results, and we just need to decide what we're going to do or how we're going to do the next. So it's the analysis of all the feedback that we had from that as to whether it should be all, none, some, something new, and that will be feeding back into council in December this year for a council debate. The other one that we've just concluded, and we've had I haven't yet read the analysis of it, but we, of course, you'll all know that we went out to consultation again on our resident survey, which we did in 21, 22, trying to remember, it's about 3 years ago. And again, that will be coming back to council just to share the information that we've gathered as to what our residents see as a priority. One of the things I do know that within that questionnaire, and in fact the LGR engagement, was that how people identify and how strongly they identify with Cheltenham as a place, which was overridingly clear, which was quite interesting. I think that's it, Chair, unless anybody's got any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Horwood, then Councillor Day.
Thanks. And I should probably declare another non-prejudicial conflict of interest as a Leckhampton with Warden Hill Parish Councillor. Just on the governance review, for the parish councils themselves, what will be the timescale of them hearing what proposals are likely to come out of this?
So they've responded as to what they would want to see. The information is being collated that is as to what's been said, and then that will trigger the next round of consultation, because there has to be two. So rather than just a generic, the first one was, this is what we're doing, give us your feedback, tell us your views. And then the next one will be to say that actually this is what you told us, and therefore these are the potential options to be considered. Give us your feedback on that. But I don't have a timescale for that. It's got to be quite quick. I think, Victoria, you might be better placed to on the timelines. Could you? Thank you.
Yeah, so the draft recommendations to be considered by council will be going on the 13th of October, so not too long for that. And then the second public consultation, based on the discussions to be had at the council and the draft recommendations, will be from the 20th of October to the 19th of December. And then, as Councillor Hay said, then there would be reviewed with final recommendations to be made and to go to council.
Thank you for that. Councillor Day.
Thank you. So it sounds very positive news that the end of October is the anticipated target date for finishing due diligence on the airport. Is there a target date in mind for completion of the sale? Thank you.
Well, as soon as possible after the due diligence is finished at the end of October is probably the best answer I can give that. But if you're thinking about any potential financial settlement, that won't come until the end of the year. You know, because you do those due diligences, and then you've got all of the negotiations around what is the art of the possible, what's our red lines, what's their red lines, to also go through. But I think, Paul, I might be right in saying that we're not anticipating any financial benefit until the end of not the financial year, but the end of the calendar year. So, yeah, December.
Okay, thanks very much. Any further questions for Councillor Hay before she leaves us? Oh, yeah. Question for yourself?
Yeah, no, it's a question to you, really. Would you mind if I slipped off, unless there's any further questions, please?
Please go ahead. Don't get too cold. Thank you. Okay, right. In that case, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is preventative maintenance on council assets and community leased buildings. And this was an item that we discussed in our working group, and people were very keen to hear about. And you've had a lot of questions on this, and thank you, Councillor Day, for your questions. We'll see whether or not you have any follow-ups in a moment. So the report was produced by Louise Ait, who is the Head of Property Management and Decarbonisation, but unfortunately she can't be here today. So in Louise's absence, I'm inviting Paul Jones to address the committee, and Richard is also here to answer questions as well.
Thank you, Chair. So I think just in terms of a little bit of introduction, the work itself in terms of preventative maintenance on council assets and community lease buildings, I think is self-explanatory. Louise has obviously written a comprehensive sort of background paper with a number of appendices. Clearly, it's quite interesting. Councillor Hay has just mentioned, obviously, local government reorganisation, and with that comes uncertainty in the workforce. So there are a number of vacancies within this particular team. They're currently out to add, but when I say that uncertainty, obviously there are a lot of people in the workforce that are probably thinking, I'll stay where I am for now because I don't know what the future will bring. But obviously we will try to rectify that at the earliest opportunity. And I was just looking at the council jobs board, and I see that we do have a couple of vacancies in this area being advertised currently. We've also got some maternity leave within the team. So you'll recall at the last cabinet meeting that Peter Jeffries identified that Gemma Bell has gone on maternity leave. And so what we've done within that section that she used to head up, which was property and finance in this interim period, has almost sort of separated. So colleague to my left, Richard King, head of construction, probably known to you very well in terms of all things Golden Valley, has stepped in to manage property services on an interim period during Gemma's maternity leave. And that will hopefully free up a bit of my capacity to have a bit more concentrated effort, I guess, on the finance side of things that Gemma handled so magnificently while she was here. So obviously there are a number of questions that have been asked. Hopefully you have comprehensive answers to those questions. Richard and I will try our best if there's any other questions or supplementary. But if in failing to do so, we will obviously ask that a record of those questions are taken, and we will undoubtedly come back to you with written responses in due course. So I'll hand that back to you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Paul. So I invite members to ask any further questions, or Councillor Dave, you have any follow-up questions? Okay, shall we start with you and then Councillor Horwood? Thanks.
Thanks. Just a couple of, I guess, clarification questions, and then I'll shut up for a bit and give other people a chance. So it's question 2, which is inspecting leases occupied by third parties to the council. Can I just confirm the answer that historically inspections have been carried out on all the properties, but it's just been ad hoc and not recorded? And following on from that, if that's, if it's been ad hoc, we've been doing them, but just not writing it down. Again, I'm just wondering why it's 6 months to the target date for the action point, because, if it's a case of really just writing stuff down that we're doing, surely it should be a bit faster than that. If we maybe do that one, and then I'll just ask the second one.
Yeah, so I think we'll have to go back and provide a written response on that one. Thank you.
Perfect. That's great. I'll just find my other question, which was, yeah, so sorry, it's because I'm an accountant by training, I'm afraid. So I just wasn't clear in the answer to question 6, where in the asset management document, we've put a value of 32.7 million against community assets, which is considerably larger than what's in the actual statement of accounts. And I just wasn't clear from the answer whether the difference is because we're using a different valuation basis. So actually we think those assets are worth, 32.5 million more than what we've got in the books, which, is totally possible, or whether it's a case of things being put into different categories between the two documents. I guess I'm asking, have we got a hidden asset of 30 plus million?
Again, I think we'll come back with a detailed answer and also a breakdown of those. My understanding from the answer in front of me is that there's a different definition that we're using in terms of what goes in the statement of accounts to what goes in the asset management strategy, but totally take the point that we need a reconciliation there. So I think the best thing is to actually get a detail of how those two numbers have been calculated.
If it's a case of it's just in different buckets, and I don't want somebody to spend ages trying to unpick it all, that's totally fine as an answer, just to try and save some work, hopefully.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Day. Councillor Horwood?
Yes, thanks very much. And there's a lot of information in the documents, but one of the sort of categories of assets that we own but don't actively manage are, of course, those managed by the Cheltenham Trust, which really do include Cheltenham's crown jewels, the pump room, the town hall, and very significant assets in the sporting and leisure side, like the Prince of Wales Stadium. And there had been a history of what I think could be politely called some misunderstandings between Trust and Council on who was responsible for what and who should have budgeted for what, which caused some anxiety in the past. And I was reassured to see quite a lot of maintenance items in the current maintenance year's programme that you've presented. But have the discussion and the discussions last time I was sort of aware of it were progressing towards much more of an agreement on how this was planned going forwards, and particularly some of the big ticket items like the running track at the Prince of Wales and the PA system at the town hall and the ceiling at the pump room and things like that should be planned in well in advance in agreement. So has that conversation reached a successful conclusion? Is there now sort of sweetness and light and a fully planned maintenance programme, or is it still quite a challenging area?
Well, I think the backdrop of this is the envelope of affordability. We have £600,000 as part of our base budget to spend on preventative maintenance on an annual basis. Just citing those three alone would probably blow 2 years' worth of budget for the whole of the council's portfolio. So in terms of the budget scrutiny, our property team identify it into three categories. Predominantly over the last number of years, it's only been item one, which is health and safety, that's been able to be funded. But you'll notice from some of the responses that we've actually had to spend significantly more than 600,000 in some of those years. One example of that was the identification of the rack at Leisure Art. So I think we know what needs to be spent, but obviously it's that affordability envelope, and I think there needs to be acknowledgement that things like the replacement of the running track cannot be funded from the existing budgets.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions? Yes, Harry.
Thank you, guys. And I asked a few of the questions beforehand, and question 7 that I was picking up on. My sort of pen maths just now, so it's about 28% up of the unplanned maintenance spend in the 2 financial years between the first and third that you provided. I was wondering why that increase happened and whether that is expected to continue to rise in sort of similar, quite large fashion. Thank you.
Again, I'll come back with a formal written response to that. But I think at the end of the day, this council's number one priority is health and safety. And so although we've got a £600,000 per annum budget for this type of activity, if things come to light that needs to be remedied immediately, then obviously we'll make a priority on that front. But as I said, in terms of the breakdown of those particular years in question, I'll come back with a written response.
Thank you. Councillor Day?
Thank you. And this kind of follows on from Harry's question and may require a written response, I think. So in answer to one of my questions, which was actually on the year-by-year budgeted spend, I think it was actually in the papers, and then the actual. So I'm ignoring 25-26 because that's the year we're in. Then against those budgeted figures, it looks like we had an underspend of £565,000 across the whole years. But then in the question that Harry, I'm glad he asked, we've got these very significant amounts for several years for unplanned maintenance spend. So my first thought was, although we're budgeting 600,000, are we looking to that budget to not spend if we need to as a council overall? And that's why, we have got an underspend there. And I guess there's a concern, is that storing up problems for the future? But then I'm now wondering how that interacts with these unplanned maintenance spends. And, we're underspent on one, but we're spending a lot of money somewhere else. And to be honest, I'm just not sure where we end up overall, if I'm honest. Thank you.
Again, I think I'll have to go away and get clarification in terms of the answers to those.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions? Okay, all right, I think, thank you very much, Paul, for coming and fielding those. And so hopefully then we can get, hopefully Louise can come back and easily answer those, and we'll pick that up. Thank you very much. Excellent. Okay, thank you. And we're moving on now to the flood risk management and prevention item, and we're welcoming James Mogridge, who's the flood risk and drainage officer, and he's going to give an overview, and Councillor Pinniger, who's responsible for this area within the cabinet, will be adding comments, and if that's all right. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to share this report, which summarises what we and our partners do, our aspirations, and how we fit into what is a fairly complex national arrangement of stakeholders and flood risk management responsibilities. Whilst complex, it is important to remember that rainwater doesn't care about these boundaries and responsibilities and will only really follow the laws of gravity. So the collaboration we have across numerous flood risk management authorities that operate in Cheltenham is very important. In the report, we wanted to highlight that a lot of mitigation work has been done since the 2007 floods to ensure that we are better prepared and more resilient to such events. And there's no doubt that the 600 properties that flooded in July 2007 are better protected should a similar rainfall event occur today. But as no two rainfall events are the same and our climate is changing, there is still plenty that can be done to improve resilience and complement the existing flood defences by slowing the flow of water through the Cheltenham catchments, ideally as close to the rainfall source as possible. Nature-based solutions, the concepts of natural flood management or retrofitting sustainable drainage systems do exactly that. And these techniques also complement other aspects of the climate emergency, such as nature recovery, water quality, urban cooling, and even in some cases, the storing of carbon. So the standard of protection offered by some of our flood defences is expected to decrease over time with climate change. And in many cases, the options to keep pace with climate change at these defences, for example, by building flood walls higher and higher, are simply not cost-effective, practical or appropriate. So we therefore need to ensure that our decision-making around choosing cost-effective schemes is robust and well-informed. Hopefully this report provides a valuable insight to our current role of that we do and our partners, and we're happy to answer any further questions.
Thanks very much, James, and thank you for answering the questions. First of all, anybody who asked a question previously, have you got any follow-up questions? No? Okay. In that case, I open it up to everybody else. Councillor Horwood.
So I'm earning my keep on this committee. Bearing in mind my earlier declaration, I've got two slightly cheeky questions. But overall, first of all, I'm glad to hear that there is a really positive level of cooperation between County Council and the borough, and I've heard that from the other side as well, which is good. And also to welcome your emphasis on basically natural solutions to flood risk that doesn't always attempt to sort of have concrete solutions to this. And I think it is much more important that we try and hold water in the landscape wherever possible. So just on that theme, you refer in the report at 3.9 to natural flood risk management projects. And I just wanted to highlight to the committee and hope that CBC is going to play their part in promoting this, that the county has launched a £100,000 fund for natural flood risk management projects at the community level. And that is still open to applications. I think they have had quite a few, but I hope that it's possible to promote that locally as well, because obviously I would welcome decent representation from Cheltenham in that. The second thing is just about the role of all the authorities in planning and the advice that's given and the metrics that are used to judge flood risk in planning applications, which I'm told is to cope with a 1 in 100 year flood, but then plus a 40% allowance for climate change. Now, those of us who were here in 2007 and witnessed 2 1 in 200 year flood events within 2 weeks, and therefore began to get a bit sceptical about those kind of metrics, and also have seen really increasingly alarming projections about climate change, just beginning to wonder whether that is sufficient and whether you think that should be pushed a bit higher in terms of the sort of bar that developments have to meet to be safe for their residents in the future. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so just on the Natural Flood Management Fund, we're well aware of that, and we've actually put in a bid with our Green Spaces team to do something in one of our local parks, hopefully using that fund if successful. On the planning, I suppose it's tough to balance. Like 1 in 100 plus 40% climate change is a fairly big event. But I take your point, obviously, you could get 2 large events occurring as we saw in 2007. As part of that planning process, they do have to design for exceedance as well. So showing what would happen if an event larger than what they're designing for occurred, or if a blockage occurred in what they're designing. But yeah, I suppose it's a tough balance, because you don't want to over-engineer everything and almost contribute to the problem by, creating huge concrete pipes to facilitate the 1 in 1,000 year event. And in doing so, you're doing more engineering, which involves more machinery, more concrete. So yeah, it's a tough one to balance, but the 1 in 100 is sort of what's set at a national scale, and the 40% is the guidance we receive from the Environment Agency locally. That could obviously change if climate change accelerates at a faster pace. They might raise it to 50%, say.
Thank you. Councillor Pinniger, did you want to follow up?
Thanks, James. Yeah, so James obviously has to follow the national guidance. That's, it's constantly reminding me that that's the case. The event in September 24, which flooded roads in St Mark's, Hester's Way and Springbank, was a 1 in 74 year event. And I think we had 1 house flooded and quite a few threatened. It wasn't a 1 in 100 event or a 1 in 200 event. And if you look at the map, you'll see there is a gap in the flood risk mitigation schemes. So I think we'll be coming to the county to talk to them about that, because we are almost a junior partner in the arrangement. I did want to mention that there is modelling available. There's it's called Super Clapeyron scaling. And what this means is that although there's more moisture in the atmosphere now, 1975 we were 1 degree cooler than we are today. In 50 years we've gone up 1 degree. There's about 7% per 1 degree increase in temperature, 7% increase in moisture in the atmosphere, so you would expect 7% more rain. The super warmer. Yes, it's 1 degree warmer than 1975. And that's the global average surface temperature of the Earth, not Cheltenham necessarily. But the super, Clausius-Clapeyron scaling takes into account the increase in convective storms. So this is saying that we will have more thunderstorms. And the projection from that is 48% increase by 2050. So another half again on where we are now, or on where we were in 1975. So we've gone from 900 millimetres to 1,350 millimetres of rain in one of these events, potentially. So I'm here, and I actually called this to scrutiny when I was just a councillor, to sort of sound the alarm bell a little bit and say we need to put some focus into this to keep Cheltenham safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smith, and then Councillor Day, then Beale, then Davis, if I can remember.
My question is about the planning for preventive flooding. There are still issues within Cheltenham with localised areas being flooded or attempted flooding, and we seem to have a long period of time before anything is done, even attempted to be done, and residents are becoming more and more concerned with weather climate that's changing, that some of these storms are going to be excessive and their properties are going to be flooded. There's 1 or 2 areas within Prestbury where no matter, as long as we have a heavy rainfall, the water is in their gardens and lapping up against their doors. That's been going on for 10 years and nobody has bothered to have a look at the drains. I've got a point that they said, oh, we're going to do it, we'll have a look at it, it's all right. And that's gone on for as long as I've been a councillor, which is just over nearly 2 years now, and still nothing's being done. And people are phoning me regularly. We have a rainstorm, that the water is in their gardens, their front gardens, up against their walls. And the concern is that that water seeps under the flooring. And all their floors are concrete. So if it starts moving the foundations, there's a lot of trouble. I just wondered how we plan for sorting this sort of thing out, because there don't seem to be a plan within Prestbury to sort this problem out.
Yeah, so I suppose going back to how some of these schemes came about was largely from a surface water management plan that the County Council commissioned, and then that sort of identified the high risk areas and what would be the most cost effective flood scheme to put in place. I suppose if there are properties flooding, they definitely need to be recorded, and we've put a sort of where you can record them on the flood online reporting tool in the report. If it's a drainage issue, it sounds like, do you know if it's highway drains or private drains that are causing the issue?
Yeah, it's drains in the road that's causing the problem. In the particular area that's flooding, there are 7 drain holes, and none of the water just goes away. It takes about 24 to 36 hours for that water to soak away. And it sounds to me that it's just block drains. There was supposed to be an inspection by drain experts, but that hasn't happened. Every time we get a reasonably heavy downfall, the water's in their gardens, and they're getting more and more concerned because of the climate change that's happening in the world, you know.
Yeah, so I suppose if it's the drains not being maintained, that should be raised with highways, although it sounds like it already has been. But if it could be a case that they're just sort of undersized anyway to cope with the sort of rainfall we're seeing now, in which case it should be raised with the flood risk management team at County Council and ourselves, and we could look further into whether there's some sort of infrastructure upgrades or hopefully a more natural approach that could be taken.
Thank you. I'll do that. I'll raise it with the Flood Management Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Councillor Day?
Well, Councillor Smith's kind of asked one of my questions for me. I don't know if you recall, the previous time we met was a freezing cold day on Ham Lane, which, you know, was very much about the issue that Councillor Smith has raised. And I would just say for me, see, the area I represent, Battledown, is very hilly. And in this heavy rain, we are getting more and more water in various places just pouring off the landscape and down the roads. And of course, it just collects at the bottom. And yes, I'm sure, like Councillor Smith, you know, I'm constantly reporting what seem to me to be block drains and will be again. But really to link to that, could you just comment on that as an issue? And can you say, you know, up to this level, we've just got to live with it and the water does go away eventually? Or have you got in mind a kind of identified tipping point at which action should absolutely be taken, you know, to deal with these issues? And then my second question is just, and apologies if I missed it in the documentation, I just wondered if you have a budget to actually do stuff. You know, I can see, you know, you guys are very busy, but I'm just wondering, you know, do you have a budget that you can actually, you know, put spades in the ground with to do things, or are you reliant on other people and finding money, you know, from various different sources? Thank you.
Yeah, so I suppose where we'd get involved, there's probably the same with the flood risk management team at GCC, is if property is being put at risk, so people's homes mainly, or commercial buildings. Obviously, sort of flooding on the highway is a nuisance and a sort of safety concern, but that's really more for the drainage teams at highways to be dealing with, rather than sort of people assigned to flood risk management looking at in detail. And then on the budget, so we do have a sort of recurring budget, but that's mainly for our maintenance of, so where we own watercourses or have built flood schemes, it's for the maintenance of those assets. And then there is also a flood alleviation reserve, which can be used for schemes, but we are finding we are also having to spend that on sort of larger asset repairs, which is still important flood risk mitigation work. I suppose you don't want to just keep building more and more flood schemes if we can't maintain the ones we've already got. But yeah, for new schemes, I think we would mainly be relying on funding, such as the natural flood management pot of money that was mentioned earlier.
Thank you. Councillor Pinniger?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Can I just chip in? So make sure that you let James know as well. I know that he's tracking He's collecting videos of particular problem areas as evidence. We are going to call for an update to the 2011 plan because the surface water flooding plan was in 2011. So it's 14 years on. It's time it should be reviewed again. And a couple of things James didn't mention was we have a network of flood wardens. We're always recruiting. If you have any residents who could help, then point them at the website. And advice for residents. So if they are in a house that is prone or they're concerned that they could see some flooding, it's all about the mitigations they can put in place for their property. So it's worth, if there are people affected, then I'm sure they've already taken all the measures they can, but there is advice available as more people experience this. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Just before I move on to Councillor Beale, I did want to pick up on that. Yes, I've got some residents who are very keen on videos. Gushing water is, it's very emotive, isn't it? And I did notice in your, you did the map of where the flood wardens are, and it looked as if Battledown didn't have many. So what I was going to say was, in terms of ourselves as councillors, trying to encourage our communities to volunteer to become flood wardens would be really helpful. So, okay, thank you. Councillor Smith then, before Councillor Beale, if it's to reply to that.
Yeah, if most of, well, all of the photos of the flooding in Prestbury is done on Fix My Street. If you want Fix My Street, you can find everything about floodings in the area. People stick it all on there all the time. So that's the easiest link. They'll give you all the photos you want. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Beale, and then we've got Councillor Davis, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. James, thank you. As you probably know, I represent Warden Hill, which is particularly affected by flooding. In fact, in September 2024, a number of houses were flooded and some of them were very close to being flooded. Myself and Tony Oliver did a survey around there and I walked around just after that event. It was pretty bad. Now, we are at the bottom of Leckhampton Hill, so there is a lot of water to run down the hill. Plus, on top of that, we have a new housing development, which is over 350 houses on that hill. Now, we are told that that will be good enough for the future, but it remains to be seen whether that will be any better than it has been. And it still doesn't cater for the ongoing floods that we get. And it's definitely flash flooding. The surface runoff water has nowhere to go, the drains can't cope, and it just goes into people's houses. My particular concern is around planning. I would like to see a lot more planning constraints around permeable surfaces, making sure that water drains away. Myself and Councillor Oliver have put in lots of suds around Warden Hill, but we know it's not enough. So I wondered if you had any thoughts on what else could be done in areas such as Warden Hill.
Yeah, so Warden Hill is an area we're obviously very familiar with, and I think I used it as an example in this report. There is a sort of working group there, which includes borough councillors and county councillors. And we have seen some successes of that group by getting suds, which in this case were delivered by the Wildlife Trust. But there's also some work going on with Severn Trent at the moment, hopefully get more work done on the sewers there that we know are undersized and can't sort of cope with that flash flooding that you referred to. I think it is kind of just trying to get as more of that done. It's a sort of area that doesn't have a lot of sort of natural green space, I suppose. So those sort of roadside rain gardens or rain gardens that take roof runoff would really help. The permeable driveway issue is something we've been trying to work on with planning as well. But yeah, it seems like it's quite a hard one to sort of keep pace with in terms of the sort of planning enforcement that can be done and sort of keep up with the amount of people who are unfortunately tarmacking their drives.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pinniger, do you want to follow up on that? We wondered about a flooding SPD, actually.
Oh, interesting idea, yes. So I went for a walk with Councillor Oliver around Warden Hill last week and looked at all these schemes. And what was I going to say? It's thrown. No, I'll have to come back to you. Pardon? Yeah, it is a shame. Oh, that's it. That's what I wanted to point out. Yes, for my own area, for the Poets Estate in St Mark's, we have people paving their front gardens to park their cars and pulling the hedges out. But people move in and out of houses, and as people move into houses, I want to set up probably volunteers initially, who would then reverse that. So take up hard-standing, put back hedges and grass. It's been a long-term ambition of mine, but I have a busy life and haven't got too far with it. But it's just a suggestion for the parish council and Warden Hill as well, that you could then get a sort of a rotation going. So some people are paving, some people are removing, and perhaps in some way, some of the houses could go back the other way.
Yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned we've also done some sort of engagement in Warden Hill. So the parish council delivered 1,000 leaflets that sort of promoted using permeable solutions and greening your property. And there's a chance that will probably happen again through these discussions we're having in this flood risk management group. Because I think in some cases it can be, some people aren't aware of that planning rule and are perhaps being missold by companies who come and do the driveways as well, and they're not aware that they're getting an impermeable solution put down, which in theory you're not allowed if it's over a certain size.
Thanks very much, James. Okay, Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Chair. This actually piggybacks quite a bit off what Councillor Beale just said, so thanks for reading my mind. But with regards to the planning process and sort of urban drainage, I represent St Paul's, and we've got Hardwick Campus and Hardwick Green, which are serving as a lot of absorption for that surface water. And obviously down the road, we've got the Folly, which was granted planning. Is there any sort of drainage modelling that's done to assess the impacts of, okay, if we build all of these houses on the Folly that is currently holding a lot of this surface water, where is that surface water going to go? Are we putting in enough suds? If somewhere like Hardwick Green or Hardwick Campus comes in for planning, we've seen how sort of flooded the area around that got in September 2024. Is there a thought process behind where we can put all of that water, because the people in St Paul's haven't got drives that they can make more or less permeable? They are reliant on the existing infrastructure to sort of consume that water so that it doesn't go into their houses.
Yeah, so the particular developments like the Folly, they would have had to do modelling. The developer would have done modelling using a consultant as part of their application, and they would have had to have shown that the impermeable surfaces they're introducing are being balanced. In that case, they're using a pond that will basically hold the water and release it at a slow rate. And for a development of that size, they have to use modelling to prove that. And even for sort of 1 to 10 houses now, we're asking for hydraulic modelling software to be used to sort of size either attenuation tanks or ponds, depending on the size of the development.
Thanks very much, James. That sounds very positive, doesn't it, actually? Any further questions? No, I just had a couple of comments based on what oh, sorry, Harry, go ahead.
I was still thinking through the question when you were asking, but I will ask it. I asked a couple of questions beforehand in writing about the relationship of all the different organisations at different levels of government. So I work in the civil service in a different sector, and I know it can be complex and all that sort of stuff. And I know that thing about that tell us once thing that I mentioned in writing isn't necessarily within your power to do. But could I get like a sort of assessment of like, would you say it's complicated, but it works well, and you're confident that if there was a crisis event like 2007, the system would be well placed to deal with that? Or do you feel that there are concerns that you have because of this complexity that might bring in, because you said like it would decrease the risk of communications failures, I think was in the written answer. Obviously in a crisis situation that could be quite significant, but what's your sort of, I don't know, professional view on the nature of the working relationship, and if it's, yeah, it might be complex but works, or complex but there's areas of concern that you might have? Just curious what your assessment was, really.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I suppose I haven't been working here when there's been a crisis of the scale of 2007, but when those sort of flood events come through, it does all feel sort of well coordinated across all the different management authorities. Obviously, it's mainly our emergency planners that sit in those calls rather than myself. So I'd say in the crisis management side, if calls come through to the wrong authority, they are passed on during the event quite well. I think that sort of one call system you mentioned, I feel would be more useful in the sort of perhaps more minor or recurring issues that occur outside of large flood events. So sort of things like a bank collapse or a blocked drain or something, and a system that could identify who's responsible and send it to the correct authority. I could see it being really useful there. But yeah, I think I sort of made out my response. I'm not too sure how it would be implemented and who would implement it at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I was just about to say, actually, following the work that's gone on in Warden Hill, James has enthused some of the residents in Park Ward to look at some flood mitigation ideas, and although we don't have the money that the parish has in that sense to be immediately, but it's great to know about the grants and schemes available for that, and thank you for that. In discussing some of the issues with them, there was one question that came up that I just wanted to ask, and that is about the perception that there are lots of problems with the sewage system and the issues with floodwater, and it goes back to this whole planning thing and the extent to which these can be, are these separated out in new developments?
So yeah, if it's a new development on a sort of greenfield site, the surface water basically wouldn't be allowed to be connected to what we refer to as the combined network. Where there's a sort of site, say in the centre of town, that's already draining to that combined sewer, so you're sort of, they're redeveloping the site, the discharge to combined sewer would be the sort of last resort. They'd have to prove that all other options aren't possible. And then we'd ask for lots of attenuation, so they're still sort of bettering what's already there.
Thank you very much, James. Oh, yes, Margaret. Yes, one last one, I think.
Yeah, I just recall that there was a severe flooding in January 2025, which led to the closure of A40. So I'm just wondering how it's collaborate with other council, for example, in such kind of severe incidents.
Yeah, so I believe our emergency planning and sort of on-call officers do offer support to the neighbouring districts, because obviously there can be times where places like Tewkesbury is at risk of flooding because there's been rainfall up the country, but Cheltenham's completely dry and not at flood risk, and vice versa. That could be, we could have a thunderstorm here, but other areas of the county aren't being at risk. And from what I found, I think there's sort of an offering of resource during those times.
Okay, thanks very much. James, you've been thoroughly scrutinised, bearing up. Thank you very much. And thank you, Councillor Pinniger as well. That's been really helpful, I think, and clearly engaged a lot of people in the issue. So thank you. We'll move on now to the Overview and Scrutiny Annual Report, which will be coming to the next council meeting. That's right, isn't it? So I'm not going to go through the whole lot, but basically to ask you to note it, what we're trying to do here is to showcase all the activity that's been going on through the committee and through the other scrutiny working groups that our colleagues sit on at county level and report back to us. So have you got any questions or queries or comments that you'd like to make and feed in to the report? Or are you all freezing to death? Maybe, yes, there we go. Okay, so and I just wanted to draw attention to what's next. So we did prioritise some items for this year, which some of which have already come, as you can see tonight, and we'll be looking forward to the draft procurement strategy, culture board, the EDI policy 1 year on, youth engagement and empty homes. So there's plenty to discuss, and anything else that comes our way that we feel would be helpful in that regard. So thank you very much for that. Do we need to ask you to approve this to go to submission to the council? Just a show of hands.
We can do it, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Are you all happy for it to go through to council? Thank you very much. At this point, we normally take feedback from other scrutiny meetings through the reports that our colleagues provide, but there haven't been any recent meetings, so we'll probably have some come to the next meeting. We have a scrutiny work plan, which is also in your packs. So have any members got any comments on the work plan? Happy with that and the coverage? Okay, that's great, very compliant. Oh, Councillor Horwood.
I'm not quite sure whether I'm on the right agenda item, because it was really in relation to our representation on other scrutiny committees, particularly Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee county level, where I noticed on the 14th of October they're looking at the continued closure of maternity units at Cheltenham and elsewhere. And I do think this is a huge issue, and it's one that our MP is taking up, I know. And I think the idea that this is a temporary closure is beginning to stretch credibility. I mean, it has been the Aviva, trying to get the name right, the maternity unit at Cheltenham General has now been closed for years, and this is really, I mean, there is a health risk to travelling in childbirth. If something goes wrong, then you need to blue light all the way to Gloucester, and in those kind of scenarios, seconds can count. And I just don't think it's acceptable for us to carry on year after year after year with a population of 120,000 in this town. And no open maternity unit. And I realise the NHS had to take its decision originally on immediate safety grounds, but surely in planning an establishment and recruitment and everything else, it should have been able to tackle this by now. So I hope our representative on OSC will raise this and really press this point very seriously and highlight the level of concern in this town about the continued closure.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hawdy. Can you turn that off? Sorry. Sorry, you're quite new at this, aren't you? Yes, certainly. Yes, I mean, Councillor Bamford is our representative on HOSC, and he's a very ardent scrutineer. And so we suggest, I mean, we'll note it, obviously, but please speak to him directly about that. I mean, I do understand that one of the issues, obviously, has been the training of maternity nurses, but I understand that that has been rectified now. So, yes, what is the continued delay? Yeah. Okay, so if we could action that you speak to, but we'll also note it here as a serious concern, because I'm sure everybody in this committee would agree with you about that. Thank you very much. No comments on the work plan. I know a lot of you have been involved in developing it, so oh, yes, we have another planning session. So, yes, get the flip charts and the stickies out. When's that, Victoria?
That is the 4th of November at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Obviously, it's in form.
Lovely, and that'll be in one of the rooms here. Yeah, thank you. Okay, lovely. There aren't any urgent items that I've identified as the chair of this meeting. So it just remains me to say the date of the next meeting is the 24th of November. Okay, thank you very much.